In today's video, I'll break down how easy it is to make unique underground melodies using Serum 2. To start, I laid down a simple chord progression using Serum's default saw wave. At this point, all I focused on was finding a nice progression that captured my mood in the moment. With this pattern ready, we can move on to the next step of sound design, which is changing the wavetable. In my case, I clicked through different wavetable options and stopped at Evo Long Grease, which had a sound I really liked. It still sounded too generic and didn't match the chaotic underground vibe I was going for. To fix that, I routed LFO1 to the wavetable position knob. You can try out different wavetable positions and stop wherever you like the sound the most. The LFO now controls the wavetable position and we can determine how it affects the sound. In this case, I changed the rate from 1/4 to 1/2, which added the movement the melody needed. Besides that, I changed the unison voices from 1 to 2. This makes the sound much wider and gives us more space for other melody elements, which we'll cover later. By increasing the unison voices, we also increase detune. Sometimes that can sound nice, but for my example, I turned the detune knob down to stay close to the original pitch. Now the sound of the chords matched my expectations for a chaotic but still thoughtful melody. To take it further, I applied simple effects like echo and EQ to add space and clean it up. This gave me the perfect bass to stack other melodies parts on top, and with some drums and an 808 the beat was finished. Now let's get to the next beat, where I made two of the melody layers using a similar method. I started the same way as before by laying down a melody with the default saw wave. After finding this kind of arpeggiated pattern, I clicked through some wavetable presets until I found AM sine harmonics, which sounded good to me. After that, I routed the first LFO to the wavetable position and tweaked the knob until I was happy with how it sounded. The only thing I did differently here was pulling the LFO curve slightly to the left to get a different rhythm. Besides that, I changed the rate from 1/4 to 1 bar, which made the movement slower. I already liked how it sounded, but out of curiosity, I enabled the mono switch and liked how it changed the sound, so I kept it. This melody gives me those okay vibes since he also uses sounds with weird movements to them. To process it further, I used one of Serum's warp modes, set it to soft clipper and added a small amount of distortion. Outside of Serum, I processed the sound with simple effects like delay and reverb to add more atmosphere. After the first layer was ready, I wanted another weird texture to match the uncontrolled glitchy character of today's underground beats. So I laid down a simple progression in the same key and found a glitchy sounding wavetable to which I again routed LFO1. This time I chose a different LFO shape to complement the first melody. That's it for what I call the glitch layer, but to push it further into a glitchy sound, the bit crusher is essential. With some jerk style drums and a fat 808, the beat was finished. A similar synthesis is found on the third beat of today's video. Take a listen. To be precise, it's this layer that we'll talk about in more detail. Same as before, I found a progression I liked and searched for a fitting wavetable. I routed the LFO to the wavetable position just like on the previous beats, but this time I decided to use oscillator B as well. For this oscillator I used the wavetable preset Evolution, which matched nicely with oscillator A. After setting up oscillator B, I tried different LFO options and decided to turn up the delay and smooth settings as well as changing the rate to 1/16. These changes made the melody much more chaotic, which is exactly what we want for this kind of underground beat. To make both oscillators feel like one cohesive sound, I applied the same LFO settings to oscillator B and that completed the sound. Quick tip at the end of the video, it's really useful to save your created sounds by clicking the Save Preset button. This way you can always come back to past patches when you feel like there's no sound left to use. I also want to say that what we covered today is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what Serum is capable of. But to avoid overwhelming you, I started with a simple technique that beginners can easily follow. If you want a deeper dive into Serum's capabilities, leave a comment to let me know. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching, and if you did, consider liking and subscribing. Thanks for watching and see you next time.